I'm Director of Culinary Innovation, Chef Greg Mueller. I'm a World Chef certified master chef with over 18 years experience. If you name it, I can cook it. So let's get cooking. All right, RecTech family, we're going to show you how to break down a full ribeye today. So just for reference, this is a 15.5 pound full ribeye. It was $8 a pound. I think it rang up right about $140 or so. This is a great way that you can break this down, save a lot of money, and get some great utilization to that. So today we're going to show you how to separate the spinalis from the filet of rib. We're actually going to roll that spinalis up, and we're actually going to tie it, and that'll be marketed like a ribeye cap steak. I know a couple of times there's been some questions on the internet about what is a cap steak. Well, we will show you exactly what that is, and by the end of this this quick session here, you'll know exactly how to break that down. So a couple things you want to make sure you have is a really good sized cutting board. There's nothing more difficult than trying to cut a really large piece of meat on a small cutting board that's moving around. So make sure you get a good sized board, and if you need to, get one of those rubber mats underneath so it doesn't slide around. Recommend a good sharp boning knife, and then also a thinner slicer, so when we're trying to get those nice steaks, we can really get some beautiful slices on that. So first and foremost, when you unpack your ribeye, get some paper towels and kind of blot the extra moisture off. It'll help it from being slippery. And then unfortunately, you'll see here when they were butchering it, they cut some slits into that meat, and that's really unfortunate. So again, when we roll that out and we separate that cap steak, you'll kind of see what that process is. But most importantly, the cow has honestly done the hard work for you. So the muscles are kind of separated with some sinew and fat, and you can literally break it apart with your hands. So there might be a thicker fat cap on the top, and loose pieces like this, if you just get a hold of, you can actually take your fingers up underneath and pretty much loosen that fat cap, and you don't have to worry about cutting it. Okay? So just take your fingers and kind of work it around, and if there's some stubborn spots, just grab your knife and just kind of separate it a little bit. Okay, and you can see that fat cap will kind of come right off. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave that attached for now, and this is going to start where that cap steak will come off. So all this down here, it's not really usable because it's a lot of hard fat. You can get in there with a knife and separate some meat for tips. We'll turn it this way so you can see. So again, we're just seaming. So all we're doing is just following that seam that cow has done for us. And if there's some stubborn spots, just grab your knife and just loosen. And this is going to be the top of our fillet of rib. Okay. So you can see I've got these holes here are where the bones are. So again, we're not taking those out, but you can see where that is. And I'm actually just going to cut right through here. And again, I'll get in here and I can clean this up, but for the most part, we'll separate this for tips. Okay. So again, there's a little bit of meat in there, but mostly fat. And again, you pull those off for beef tips. It's pretty good. So now we have the cap attached to the eye of rib. And if we look here on this side, you can kind of see where that starts to separate. All right. So the easiest thing to do, and this is going to be the chuck side, where you'll see a little more of that spinalis. You'll see where it's kind of separated right into three muscles. Okay? So you got your spinalis, your eye of rib, and your culotte. So what we can do is actually just take our fingers right at that fat line and start to separate. We're just going to run our thumb in there. Okay, and you can see we're actually separating the cap steak from the eye. Okay? Again, if there's some stubborn spots, just give a little cut. And again, all we're doing is just following that seam. And you'll see there's a good bit of silver skin on the top of that eye of rib. Just keep pulling that apart. We'll just cut this big piece of fat out of here. We'll just keep pulling that fat. Okay, give you a different view of that. So this is going to be the eye of rib, and this will be our spinalis. And there's a third muscle that kind of runs starting right here. It almost looks like a little mini tenderloin. And we'll actually separate that, and that's a really good eating piece of meat as well. Okay. And you'll start to see that come in. It's right here. So again, we're just going to pull that out. Sometimes you can leave it attached and tie it up, but for this purpose we will go ahead and remove it so you can see it in its entirety. And again, this fat here, it's actually good for grinding. You can go ahead and save that if you want. All right, so there's going to be our eye of rib, and we can clean that up a little bit later. So we'll put this one to the side. So this is going to be your spinalis dorsi. This is the third most tender muscle in the cow, and in my opinion, the most flavorful. So what we'll do is, it's got some silver skin and fat. We're going to go ahead and we'll trim that off, and then what we'll do is we will roll it up and tie it tight and cut it into steaks. And the cool thing about the spinalis is when it cooks, it actually plumps up, so it looks a lot bigger than it is. So it's a little thinner on this side, and it's a little thicker over here, and what you can do is you can actually take your knife and butterfly this open, and when you roll it, it'll look fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up here, remove the fat and the silver skin, and we'll have a delicious ribeye cap steak. Alright, so you can see we've got our spinalis nicely trimmed. You don't have to get all the fat off because that's a good bit of flavor, but make sure you spend the time and get all that silver skin off. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to roll this up, and you'll see the top side of that cap steak is a little cleaner looking. That's going to be the inside of our piece of meat. So what we'll do is we'll spin this around, and we will roll this up nice and tight, and we'll tie that with some butcher's knots, and we'll cut it into steak. So that right there is a delicious piece of meat. So we'll do a butcher's knot to secure that. So we'll grab a piece of twine. What we'll do is we will go up underneath that piece of meat. We will cross over. Okay, we'll make a little loop here. We'll go over the top of both and back through that loop and secure that knot. Okay, so now what we do is we can tighten down. And that's a nice tight knot. We'll go ahead and cut that. And the reason why I'm not doing one long knot is I'm actually going to cut these into steak. So I want individual knots about 1.5 inches apart. Alright, you can see we've spent the time, we've got that tied up really nice and neat. We've got knots about every 1.5 inches. What we're going to do is we're going to take our slicer, we're going to square off that end. Again, we're all about presentation here. And you want to slice right in between your knots. And those are going to be delicious eating steaks. It's not uncommon to see these marketed in restaurants for, you know, $55 to $75 a pound. Again, because this is a very rich, delicious piece of meat. But it's something you can do at the house And again, you can sear those off on the flat side of your sear kit, and those are going to be delicious eating pieces of meat. So that's how you do your ribeye cap, and we'll roll that up into cap steaks. So that's what a cap steak looks like. All right, so now that we've got our cap steak taken care of, again, we're going to take a look, and this is going to be the chuck end. So this muscle right here, we can actually separate, and for the purposes of this will almost look like a little mini tenderloin. And again, you just take your fingers in there and pull it out. You can basically just pull it right apart. So if you clean this up real quick, it almost looks like a little baby tenderloin, and it's a delicious eating piece of meat. Okay, there's just one little piece of sinew on the top. And there you go. So that's going to be a delicious eating piece of meat as well. So on to the actual fillet of rib itself. We'll go ahead and we'll grab our knife, and we're actually going to remove all of this silver skin. Because again, you don't want to eat that. We want to get a nice clean fillet of rib. So here we have our fillet of rib, and we can go ahead and cut this into steaks. We can tie it up and make it into roast. It's delicious, and you'll notice there's not that big pocket of fat in there, so it's a lot more desirable to eat in this fashion. So we'll go ahead and square that up to make that nice cut, nice and clean. We'll go ahead and cut these into steaks. We're looking for about a 12-ounce steak there. And as it gets a little smaller, just go a little thicker. Clean up the end here. And now you've got some beautiful center cut rib steaks. All right, you can see all that meat that we've processed off of this full ribeye. And to get a recap, this is a 15.5-pound ribeye. We have 11 beautiful center cut eye of rib steaks. We have 11 beautiful medallions of that spinalis or ribeye cap steak, as well as that culotte steak to enjoy. So next time you go to the store, ask your butcher, buy a whole ribeye, process it out. I guarantee you're going to have delicious meat. You're going to save a lot of money. Enjoy.